Well, hi again, everybody. Got a cracker for you again tonight. We really are getting through some really interesting artists, people that do some really different kind of art, which is, the whole point. It would be pretty boring if this was the same every week, for sure. And as usual, just need to sort of run through a few things before we get tonight's guest in. And the first being just to remind you, really, that this is all part of the Flux Review, which is a magazine. Edition 12 is actually being created as we speak. So Lisa is working on that as we speak. And this is edition 11. It does come in two versions, actually. There is a hardback collector's edition as well of each one. I think there's only 100 of those produced, but it is sold in a lot of places all over the world, actually. So well worth getting a look at it. And when we've gone on to the next thing, which is, of course, the exhibition happening on the 17th of July until the 20th. The private view is on the 17th of July, and the private view tends to be a madhouse. It's there's a lot of people come, and it's a fantastic night, but the whole weekend will be good. There's all sorts of things happening as well, sorts of things in the pipeline. So as you can see, it's very busy. 70 to 80 artists in the Bomb Factory in Marylebone, so really well worth popping along, for sure. You can get your tickets on Eventbrite. There will be a link in this video. I will put that in on the actual YouTube for you to get your tickets, but tickets are available now, and there are still submissions being accepted. So if you're an artist and you fancy being putting yourself forward for this, then please go onto the Flux Review website or the Flux Exhibition.com, which you can get to as well. Equally, next week I'm going to try something that I've not done before, and this is actually, I'm going to Michelle Watson's, who's a Flux artist. I'm going to her private view on the 13th, so next Thursday, and I'm actually going to try and live broadcast from that PV. So that'll be great. If you have never been to a PV before and wonder what they're like, this is your opportunity to find out, assuming that I can keep away from the wine. I think is the answer to that. So anyway, let's think about tonight's guest. So it's quite interesting, really, because I actually met tonight's guest at Fresh, the art exhibition and art fair that was recently at Alexandra Palace. Loved his work. Asked him if he'd like to come on, and bit of toing and froing, backwards and forwards. Finally sorted out a date, and tonight is the date. Now, as usual, I've put together my 1-minute video that I do for every guest, and this is just to introduce Sam Peacock to all of you. So here is his video. So there you go. I promised you something different, and It's very different. So let's, without further ado, let's get Sam in. Sam,
Hello.
how are you? Let's move you over to the other side. Yeah, how you doing?
All good. Yeah,
Yeah,
nice. All good, mate.
good, good. Well, this is an interesting one for me because the way that you work is really quite outstanding with what you do. I haven't seen anybody else doing it, so it will be really good to find out how you got to this point in your life. So obviously, got to be the first question. How did you come to art?
Um, well, firstly, thanks for having me. Lovely to join you. At the moment, I'm in Battle, which is in Sussex, sitting in my little shop, which is just off the high street. First coming to art. So I think it goes all the way back to school. I didn't do school that well. I'm not too sure everyone did school that well. But art was almost like it was a special room where you could go to the art room and just do what you wanted. So I did my GCSEs in art, and this was in, when would this be? 92, I think. Um, I think then it kind of mixed in with a love of model making and making little miniature figures as a kid. And me and my friend Billy, we used to make little figures out of lead. So we used to melt lead down in his kitchen that we nicked off. We stole it all off church roofs. We were really naughty as children. We were the worst kids ever. We couldn't get the worst.
You do know this is public. You do know.
Yeah. I know. No, don't. It's fine. No, me and Billy got up to all sorts. So we used to melt things down on a weekend in his kitchen, and that kind of, it was just doing that and then making little Napoleonic figures. And we used to sell them at school. We sold them for like 20p each. Almost like it's going to be a recurring theme, this 20p each thing. But so we used to sell these we used to sell lead figures, and I used to spend my time in the art room. We used to just sit and draw stuff and just interested in art, and then we'd get interested in like the history behind things and then the local landscape. You know, it's just we were just kids. You know, we just had BMXs and pen knives and just to get on and, you know, pre-phones and pre-internet and everything. And it was just, we used to make our own things up, and yeah, it was just good. So then I went to managed to go. I got my stuff together, did a GCSE retake. I'm sure most people have been down that route at some point. And then did my A levels. So A levels was interesting. That's when it kind of got more interesting as far as discovery of metals, I guess, and setting fire to things. And I used to do that. I used to set fire to old bits of car doors, and I used to buy cars from the scrap yards and set fire to them. That was good fun. I used to do that, and that probably ended up, you know, as kind of you see now. I think the lineage, you could probably take it back to setting fire to things. It's a long old story, really. I don't know if that's answered your question or not.
Well, it certainly sent me down a different direction from what I'm going to be asking. But okay, but when did you? So you've got to that point where you have been setting stuff together. When did you actually think, you know what, I could probably do this as a career. This could be my thing.
I don't ever think it. Okay, I think it was probably the time me and my wife were. So after university, I moved to London. We're living in London. I still made art, so I was at the time I was kind of sending off packages to various interior designers, just to try and get, I guess, not myself noticed, but I wanted to kind of exhibit art in hotels and pubs and restaurants really early, and I was getting knocked back a hell of a lot. I used to get a lot of knockbacks. I think everyone's had knockbacks in their life.
Yeah.
But you just get up and you do it, don't you? You just you know, I think I'm just trying to think. It's probably been about 15 years, a little bit more than that, maybe. As good as full time, I think. I think when we adopted our daughter, when was that? That was 11 years ago. It just got. Yeah, I think the orders just it was just like the pylon, you know, where people just, you get galleries ringing up and wanting work, and then you got I guess the hotel thing started properly. But I mean, you know, I worked early doors with really good galleries and really good art dealers. You know, I'm very lucky in that respect to have worked with really top-notch people. You know, people that, you know, there's a lot of dealers that don't have their galleries anymore because, you know, I guess just life catches up with people, doesn't it, a little bit?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
I worked with some amazing, you know, like, you know, traders like Eleni Duke at the Curious Duke. She was fantastic. She was fantastic for me. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole list of them, but you know, me and Eleni worked a lot, and she did a lot for me to push me. I think a lot of gallerists, you know, if they've got a good artist, they'll push a good artist, you know,
Yeah,
and they'll make sure you're on the wall. They'll make sure that when interior designers ring up and say we need, you know, X, Y, Z, that you're at the front of the queue. But I made sure Lenny had got all the best stuff. You know, it was as simple as that. But that's kind of how I got into the more commercial aspect. I think previous to making what you see now, you know, I was really, I mean, as much as being inspired by, I guess, Sean Scully, which we'll talk about probably in a bit, Mark Rothko, Kurt Schwitters. I mean, there's a whole list of artists who would kind of, you know, who have inspired me over the years. But yeah, I don't know. I wanted to do sculpture, and I think that's where you know, going back to car doors, and I was more happy setting fire to things and bashing them up with a sledgehammer than your more traditional kind of. It's just, yeah. I think what it was, if I'm absolutely brutally, I'm going to be really brutal. There was at the time so many artists in A level that were just doing stuff that they knew would appease. You know, I'm not knocking anybody on my A level course, but there was one or two artists who just, you know, stood out, who didn't want to follow the course syllabus. You know,
yeah,
just trying to keep people that don't do very rigid. I mean, we all got through and passed the course, but we just wanted to do something different with the time that we had. I mean, and you know, I wanted to make things out of steel. I wanted to make sculptural pieces for walls, but maybe galleries didn't want that at the time. You know, being an unknown name, it's hard to just turn up, isn't it, in a gallery and say, look, you know, I want to sell, or I want you to sell these for me.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
It was only, I guess, I mean, there was other, you know, there's dealers beforehand, but when Eleni turned up, she was very, I think she caught me at the right time. We caught each other at the right time, you know, and she kind of made me more, well, we both made each other more 2D as it was. But yeah, hope that answers the question.
yeah. It does, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because it sounds like you recognised also early on that it's business. It's art, but it's also business. If you want to make money, you got to treat it as a business.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in this shop 52 weeks of the year, 5 days of the week, sometimes 6 days of the week, in all weathers, whether it's cold, whether it's raining, whether it's baking sun outside. I'm here and I'm making art. I can't escape it. It can't escape me. And it's my business. I need to sell as much of this as I can. It's straightforward, you know. It's straightforward for the galleries that I work with. You know, the galleries that I work with are in business. You know, if you look at the rents on a gallery these days, if you look at everything from, you know, owning a shop, business rates, then you've got electricity. On top of that, you've got staffing rates. You've got everything else. You've got the car that you run the art around with. You've got petrol. They've got a mortgage to pay, and they've still got themselves a wage to pay to keep them going.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with the 50-50 split, I've never had a problem with giving people 50% of anything. You know, if they're going to earn out of it, and we're all going to earn money, it's good. You know, 50-50 is good. You know, if they've got the clients who are buying it, 50-50 is all good with me. I know artists probably, not all artists agree with me, but I've never had an issue. I think it's for everyone to work it out for themselves, isn't it? For me, it's just
Yeah.
it's trade, you know.
Yeah, and it is. I've always found it quite interesting how that side of it is not. It's not spoken about enough that it is a business, and and really, if you were, let's say, for argument's sake, you're making a bit of furniture for Harrods or Selvages or somebody like that, then they're going to have their markup. They're going to want you to do it for what you can, and it's no different because somebody's got to, at the end of the day, if they've got the clients, if they've got the people that are going to buy your art, you get paid, they get paid. What difference does it make? You know,
Exactly.
everybody needs each other to do it.
It's got
It's
to work well
interesting.
together. It's as simple as
Yeah,
that.
and it's you think about any manufacturers like well, boiler manufacturers as an example. They don't supply direct to builders. It's all done through a merchant, and
Mm.
the merchant makes his cut on top of that, etc., etc. So
Yeah.
it's no different, is it?
No,
It's the world we
no,
live
no,
in.
not. You're dealing in the high end good market. You know,
Yeah,
it's things that are, I guess, for 95% of England, very unaffordable, and you target the 5%, and that's that. I mean, if you look at kind of the demographics of my customers, they're people with mortgages, they're people that have just that have sent the kids off to university, they're people that are potentially about to retire, just retired, they're people that are doing the house up. People find me on the high street as well as people, I guess, find me online. I still think people prefer to see the artwork in person. That's why I work with the galleries that I do. It's no different from any other industry. You know, I've got a good friend who is a jeweler and has the shop around the corner from me. And you know, he did art as a kid, and he's a bit like me. He wasn't any good at school. Didn't want to do school, but just was in the art room. You know, and he was melting down precious metals. You know, doing things that he wasn't meant to be doing either.
yeah.
But you know, he worked out early doors as well. That you know, you've got to make money, and you've got to make what you want, and it's straightforward, isn't it?
Right. So let's talk about your actual art. So you're working on steel plate. Is that right?
Yeah, I'll show you. Yeah, I've got one here, but I've got about 1,000 here actually. So this is one that I've just. If I turn it like this, so it's 0.9 mil gauge.
Okay.
I'm going to run my finger around the corner, so it's thin, but it's got about 7 layers of paint and coffee mixed together, and then set fire to. So I set fire to the underside under here, and then finally set fire to the top side.
Right. So is the coffee to give it the texture?
Yeah, do you know? So I do get this question about the coffee thing. I think to have an angle, everything for me, it's about an angle, right? So
Yeah.
if you've got a hotel approaching you, it's important to know a bit about hotels. So I know hotels do really well on coffee and breakfasts, and I just think, well, okay, if they're going to have artwork in their hotel, it's got somehow it has to link, it has to resonate, and most hoteliers they'll understand that. If you talk about coffee, you can talk about trade. You can talk. I guess you can talk back to how spices and herbs and coffees first came to England in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s. You know, like when I worked with Novotel, that was I got that commission solely because I set fire to coffee.
Really? I mean that's quite amazing, and I I can see that, and this also comes back to knowing your market.
It, like
Absolutely
I said,
knowing
it's a
your market.
business.
Yeah,
It's a business.
yeah,
If I'm not making art, I'm sitting there thinking about who this is going to, where this is going.
yeah,
You don't, I don't have a chance not to be confident in the fact that all this will sell. I don't have a chance to be confident. I'm not in that position in life to think, what if it doesn't work? You just have to
mm,
think, yeah, this is just going to work, and I just need to make this work.
yeah.
I think, yeah, I've got like everyone's got responsibilities in life, haven't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, and we all have, and that's true. I mean, I've said more than once that if it wasn't for my main business, I would never be able to afford to do what my art. I just wouldn't. It's too expensive. It's too
yeah,
and you've got once you're in a certain bracket of what your art is worth when it's sold, then obviously you also limit your buyers, because there's only a limited number of people that can actually afford to buy it anyway. So yeah, I would probably think differently. I'm in a fortunate position that I can do that and say no, sorry, that's how much it is. If you don't want it, don't buy it. So it can be a little bit like that, but that's because I've got a successful business behind me.
I
Um,
do bend a little bit when it comes.
yeah.
If people come to the shop, and all my dealers know that if you've got somebody who's interested and they want to buy it,
Mm.
uh, there's always a deal to be done.
Oh
I
yeah,
think,
there is. No, sorry, I'm not.
yeah,
I'm not saying that there isn't, but quite often it's very interesting, especially uh, and I found this doing Flux exhibition. It found it very interesting that actually the people that do buy it are not bothered by how much it is, because they buy it because they love it,
yeah,
and the price is totally immaterial. And that's when I've sold there. That's exactly what's happened. Is that they don't care how much it is in some respects.
yeah,
If they love it, they're gonna want it, and
exactly.
that's yeah, true of a lot, I think. So let's just talk about. So what you've got is your I've reading your biography, reading the bits that you've got on your website, which we'll bring up later because it's a cracking website. Um, is looking at different landscapes and things. So what I've done is I've taken some of the images that you sent me. I've also
Okay,
taken some off your website that we can basically talk about. So this is the kind of thing that actually what I'll do is I'll put us
that
up front.
Fourth Rose Bay.
Yeah. So this gives you, and what I'm going to do while we're doing that, I'm going to turn your camera around so that people can actually read your sweatshirt with your little bit of promo on there. But because you were mirrored, but this, yeah, exactly. You're inspired by landscapes
Yeah,
in this type of art in your paintings, as opposed to the other stuff that you do, which is again, how do you? Because I can bring another one up as an example,
there we
but
go.
how do you jump back to that one? How do you decide on your color palette? Because again, reading your website, it's like this is this is just for this place.
Okay.
So this moment in time when you did this and this particular place that this is about, that's where your color palette comes from for this particular one, because you
I
have got
think
quite a lot of different ones.
I'm gonna answer your question the best I can. So I spend a lot of time when I'm not in here. I'm probably out metal detecting. Weirdly enough, um, I do a bit of detecting on the weekend. I do actually go home every now and again. I'm not just.
I was going to say, I hope that's
I
not
do go
going
home
out
every now and again.
trying to find your
If
sheets
you
of
don't have me in the
steel.
house, you won't let me in the house anymore. So, no, I think for this piece here, it's a multitude of photos. Just of, when you see like nice colours, like in the landscape, and you think, do you
Yeah,
know what, that's going to work. And
yeah, yeah.
I was quite inspired by Turner as well. I know it's not all Turner, but I think Turner really inspired me. And he worked. He was the first kind of, as I see it. I mean, you could talk about Malevich, but you could talk about Turner in the same thread as kind
Mm,
of them first real artists who looked at colour and thought, do you need to have, you know, a landscape the way a traditional landscape was painted, And I think it was, I mean, to be fair, by the end of kind of Turner's, I guess, life, I mean, it was very abstracted. There was a
yeah,
lot of stuff. It was very abstracted. I think it changed people's perceptions, and I think lots of artists followed on from that. I mean, I didn't, but it just became a conscious awareness that artists were changing perceptions. You know, I mean, an artist who's always really inspired me, I guess, Rothko. You know, you look at Rothko's like colour fields that he produced in his work, and then you know you look at the work he did for the Four Seasons in New York, and you think, although he's not painting landscapes, um, there's so much to be said from finding colour in a landscape and adding it to maybe somewhere that it shouldn't be. You know, you know, I'm making things a lot more. I do want to say abstract, but I've never seen myself as an abstract. I don't see myself as an abstract painter. I don't know what I see myself as.
Interesting.
I think sometimes you get a lot of red. The red thing, early doors, I painted a lot of red. I think you get a lot of red skies at night. I mean, pink's an amazing colour to use. I had a buyer in China and I had a dealer in England who would ring me and say, "What have you got in red?" And I'd say, "I've got about 3 pieces right now." And they just said, "We'll just have them because it's all going to China." And you just package it up and send it off. And then you think, blimey. And they kept ringing up and saying, "Anything else with red in it?" And this was for a hotel in, actually, I'm not going to pronounce it. I still can't pronounce it even now. But they said, "Can you produce any more red?" And I just, by the end of it, you're being asked to produce paintings that were predominantly had red in it. So you'd look at your sketchbooks and think, well, you know, although red isn't the predominant colour in a landscape, you'd put red in it, and it would all go. So it's a bit like that. I think. I mean, I do like the teals. I think teals and greens, you know, as you've seen here, are really teals, greens, and oranges. They're such powerful colours, and you can work them so well together, and they do appear naturally together. And I want to kind of emphasise that. I mean, even there, like as the picture you've got on now with sanding, I just use a sanding disc to kind of rip through the layers, and then that's been hand sanded back, just to bring the steel through, and the steel kind of it echoes kind of light, I guess, bouncing through I guess not the clouds, but bouncing through the landscape. And I mean, it's one of the most malleable materials you can use. And you look at some paintings where I've really worked it and set fire to it, and there's definite dents and there's hand marks. And for some reason, I mean, and you explain the story to people about the colours and the way you've worked the metal, and people just love it. They buy into it, and I mean, people buy from people, don't they? You know, people love the story. And if you can talk, I can talk art. You know, like my degree was in art theory. And I didn't enjoy my degree. I just did it. You know, I wasn't. To be fair, I wasn't the best at it. There was a lot of very clever people there. I don't think I don't know how I got through it. To be fair, I was always in a nightclub.
Yeah, I think we were all a bit like that at uni, to be honest. Yeah, I only really worked my last sort of 6 months. Yeah, there weren't a lot going on before that. It's interesting. So, what also reading on your website? So, oil, clay, coffee. You're using some interesting stuff to do this.
I quite like clay.
Yeah.
Clay's exciting. I'm doing a show. I've got a solo show in Nottingham in September with George Thornton. So George Thornton Gallery. I think his environment around Nottingham's built up. It's collapsed now, but the coal industry was so important to Nottingham's development, and I really wanted to use coal. So I've got a few bits of coke, and I'm just crushing them up, and it's more kind of industry stuff, you know. And I'm going to add that to the paint, to the coffee, and set fire to it, and see, you know, I'm going to experiment first on these I'll make these little kind of test sheets, these little, I know you haven't got the camera on me at the moment.
Yeah, 1 second. We're going to have the camera on you. Yeah, do that again. Yeah.
So these little things.
Okay.
There's a bloody car alarm going off. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
It's always the bloody way, isn't it? As soon as you start talking about something. I wish they'd all just sod off. There we go. So these are these little I make these little tests, and I guess this becomes my sketchbook. And you know, I think I stopped using modern sketchbooks when they all just caught fire. But you do realise that, sketchbooks. It just wasn't for me. I just wanted to do my own little things, and then I ended up selling all the sketches. We do these little picture shows. I mean, these pieces here, these go to Flowers Gallery. So Flowers on Corkscrew take these for the Christmas show, which is quite nice.
But that's also, I mean, that's in some ways that's not similar to what I do, but I'd have a print done that small as a
Yeah,
test, because the way my work is done, it it's done with a stopwatch and a bloody oven, and if they get those two, temperature or time, wrong, the colors are all wrong. So I have a test one and I approve it before they actually print the print. They're used to me now, so they
yeah,
pretty much know what I have. But in the early days they do like 7, and you still trying, all of them marked up, we tried this, we tried that. Yeah, it's not, it's you're right, it's like a sketchbook.
yeah.
um, and it gives you a bit of an idea of what you're actually going to put together. I
That's
like
it.
the fact that you're in Nottingham, you're doing you're in obviously the coal area, and therefore you're doing the same. You're thinking, I know what my market's going to be. We're going to put a bit of coal in this, and
Yeah,
yeah,
it's just
yeah,
an angle.
and you might be doing it, subconsciously almost, because it triggers something.
Look, I think when people go and see it, they've got to resonate with it. If
Yeah,
whoever's going to buy the work that I end up creating, they're going to look at it and they're going to feel that it's from the soul, it's from Nottingham, and
yeah.
yeah, I'm utilising stories and histories of the area.
Mm, mm.
Like in 2015, that'd be 10 years. Weird enough, here we go. 10 years ago, I think it's this week. 10 years ago this week, I did a show the Curious Duke in London, called Fractured. So it's 10 years ago, and I think I made 52 pieces, and they were tiny little things. I made 52 pieces, each named after a site that had been fracked or was going to be fracked. It had
Oh,
license for hydraulic fracturing, as it's
fracking. Yeah,
known
yeah,
as, which is now banned. So it's
yeah.
a banned practice. But all these sites, I think there's one site in Preston. It's called Priest Hall. I
Mm,
think it was Priest. If memory serves me correct, it's
mm.
Priest Hall. Um, and that piece had like a good story, because they'd started doing the fracking, and they'd cracked the earth by
That's right.
pumping water.
Water. Yeah,
I think it's water into the shale,
that's
and
correct.
it cracks the shale and then releases a gas. But
Mm,
they'd caused seismic activity with the amount of pressure that they were exuding from the
yeah.
water into the earth, and the seismic activity had almost caused a minor earthquake. And
Mm,
sometimes with houses, it only needs a minor push, but it destroyed houses. And they'd only been, they're not all toppled over, but they'd only moved a bit, but they'd moved enough, and
mm,
cracks had appeared in people's houses. And it wasn't reported on the news because nobody wanted to bloody know about it. But
mm.
it got picked up in Preston, in Lancashire, and before you knew it, people were saying, as much as the government say, well, these were the old Tory boys. They were saying, as much as fracking is going to do wonders for our, industries in England and renewable energies, they didn't realise the amount of damage they were going to do to people's homes. They didn't realise the amount of damages they were going to do to the water courses underground, and all these scientists and everything just came out. And because it was a landscape issue, as far as people couldn't claim insurance on their houses, and it was such a big talking point that because your house wasn't insured for fracking damage,
So
so
does this,
the insurers
all
weren't
of
paying.
this inspired this collection, did it?
Pardon?
All of this inspired this collection that you did.
Yeah. So it was a story, and I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna. So I wrote a piece. I wrote a piece evidencing all this, and it was the Wall Street Journal picked up on it, and they put some of my artwork in the Wall Street Journal, and then I forget the writer's name, but somebody wrote a story about me writing about this, and it went on the Wall Street Journal, And it sparked an argument. And I'm sure most of it's still online.
Mm.
But people just saying he doesn't know, bloody artists don't know what they're talking about and everything. And then people saying, no, he's absolutely right. This could, as an insurer. And all these people just came out of the woodwork. And then we had the show at the Curious Duke. But it created a frenzy almost. And
Yeah.
you want that, don't you? You want to have
Yeah.
good stories where people go, bloody hell, right, okay. And then it drives them out the houses. It drives them to the shop, into the gallery. And I know, people will say, oh, he's just playing on people's misfortune here. But it's not that at all, is it really? If anything, we made that, I got
You
in
made
touch
it.
with
You
those
brought
people that were
more.
involved in the
Yeah.
anti-fracking movement, and they
You
were
brought
quite
more
happy
aware.
that it was
Yeah.
getting any
Yeah.
artist giving it publicity.
Yeah. It's I think it's interesting because there's no such thing as bad publicity, is there?
Mm.
And it's quite I can remember a few years ago that I was just about saying, and it's gone completely out of my head, the name of it, and everybody's going to go, oh, don't be ridiculous, because you're covering up the fact that you do name it. Ann Summers, that's the one.
And some
So Ann Summers put a very provocative advert on the side of a London bus, and it got banned. They got more publicity from the banning than that advert would ever have gained them. And that's what I mean. There's no such thing as bad publicity. It's quite clever to
was it
actually do
Hello
that.
Boys?
It was
Was it
right
the Wonder
along.
Bra?
Yeah, it was quite provocative, and it got banned, and it just made all the paper, made everything, which was way more publicity, and all for free, basically, because it got banned. But that, and I've done some stuff. I've had my images projected onto buildings, and all that's illegal as well, but it's good fun doing it because but it's all about generating
Yeah.
publicity and actually getting people to talk about your work, which let's talk about a bit more, because you mentioned already the Novotel, and let's bring one of these up here.
Oh, look at
So
them. Right, what you can see, where the light is,
yeah,
and have a look under that. Can you see the door?
yeah.
So we put that door in. That took us. That was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. So we measured that door out, and we'd worked out a contraption. Me and a fabricator friend I work with called Jude. He's very good, very handy with like fabricating steels, much better than me. But we managed to cut the door out of steel in 2 parts, and then we did a 3-part. What's it called? The bit that goes around the door. I forget. There's a correct terminology for that.
Well, the liner.
Yeah. So I cut
Yeah.
that in steel. We cut that out in steel. I angle ground it all down to the millimeter so it would fit. But no, I thought I made quite a handy job of that. The colours, the blue. If you look on the Dulux colour chart, right, that blue is Javan Dawn,
Right.
and the red is called Flame Red, and they were picked by an interior designer in Paris, who sent me a load of swatches, a load of test sheets. I looked at the building before it was constructed. So we started. Weirdly enough, I made the majority of that in my garden, and then I made the rest of it on the driveway. I've got a big garden, a big driveway, and it all went on the driveway in the garden. So I'd spend the day literally going from one end of the house to the other end of the house, painting bits, and I just worked to sheet. I'd take a photo of something when it was done. I'd send it off in the post, not in the post. What's it called? The email. Send it on an email to people.
We're back to 1992 then.
No, I'm so bad with technology. You've got no idea. I'm the worst person with it. I'm so crap. I can't explain it. It must be. I can't do it.
So are these steel panels? These are steel panels, are they?
Is what?
Are these steel panels?
0.9 mil gauge steel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there they are. Yeah. Okay. Christ.
It's all steel. And
Yeah.
then so where the staircase was in that photo there, that leads up to the first floor coffee bar. and we tessellated about, let me think, 47, 48 panels, various shapes and sizes, and then we bolted
Wow.
them all together. Then, I mean, there's lots of arguments through it. I mean, I know I sound like I'm easy to work with. I think we all get a bit stupid, don't we? I mean, you know what it's like. You put a couple of people. There we go. This is it.
Yeah.
I made that in
So,
my garden.
so this comes up. This is the coffee bar that what
Yeah.
we've that this
When you go
leads
in
up
there, it's
to.
wicked.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing in there. They've got the interior designer just done a pucker job of that. They just made it look so nice.
It looks really
All the
cool.
brown. So the brown,
Yeah.
that's a chemical called chloride and ferric. So ferric chloride is what you use in circuitry, and it's a stain.
Yeah.
So to get that to do that, you have to heat the steel. So I probably heat the steel at 1600 degrees, and then spray ferric chloride onto it. Obviously, I wear a mask and goggles, and it will turn it that color. I've got that down to about 20 seconds. I can do most of that.
Wow.
I mean, you know, I'm working with fire pits back at the house to heat steel and spray it on. Yeah, you just become good at you know, you enjoy your craft, and I'm going to blow my own trumpet because I can, and no one else will blow it. So I think I'm really good at making all this. I think I've got my craft down to an absolute T now, you know.
So how do you then finish that?
So it's
What?
finished in it's like it's a yacht varnish that Ron Seal make.
Okay.
It's lovely. It stinks to high heaven. You have to wear a mask with it. It just absolutely stinks. But it's just finished with that, and then it's hand sand. It's all hand sanded. A bit of disc sanding, but really it's just me, gloves on, sandpaper, and making it look exactly as they want it to look.
Yeah.
That one. That's purely a commercial project. That is me doing what I'm told to do.
Yeah.
There's no great kind of, this is all my, you know, vision and dream with that at all. I'm not going to go into any of that nonsense.
No.
That is somebody saying, can you make that look like that? The original idea, when Novotel first approached me, they said, could we have potentially something that looked like the hull of a ship, the side of a ship?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I said, yep, we can do that. And then I said, okay, so what colours do you want? And she goes, these are the colours. She goes, if I sent you to India, I was like, yes. She goes, if I sent you to India, and would you go to, there's a beach in India, and it's full of deserted like cruisers and cruise liners, and like, you know, Maersk and companies like that, all the ships that haul Maersk around, when they've reached their prime or past their prime, they get dumped on a beach in India, and I forget where it's in southern India. I don't know what the beach is called. It's in southern India somewhere. Right. And I said, would you go over there? We'll get a local bloke, and we'll angle grind. I said, what are you going to do? I said, you're not going to angle grind a boat apart.
Angle grind and bring it back
off it. Could you work? I said, look, the best thing we can do. I don't really want to go to India. I said, it sounds lovely, but I'll just make that here. I'll make it in my garden. I'll do that in the garden.
Oh yeah, and without the deli belly that goes with it.
Oh, no, you know, but it just sounded really romantic, you know. But you can't. I mean, the romance of it it all sounds great. It's a great story, but I don't know. Do I really want to go? It'd be lovely to go and do it. It'd have been lovely to go to India and go and do that. It'd been a great story, and you know, it's a nice little tickle now. It's a nice story now, but yeah. Ultimately, I'm not the best of travellers. I love travel, but I'm not a good traveller. I'd miss my wife. I'd miss my daughter. I'd miss my house. I'd miss my garden, and I'd miss the shop. And I don't really want to do it.
I think we get that impression.
That's just honesty, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about something completely different now, because you also have these, and I know you've got some examples behind you, which we'll get to. Just talk me through these, because are these also steel, or are they brass?
They're brass.
Right. So you
So
don't
they're
just,
artillery
yeah,
shells from various conflicts
yeah.
ranges.
I thought they were.
I
Oh,
think the
really?
earliest one I've got with me in here. I think I've got something from 1913, which is pre-World War
Wow.
One. That's
Wow.
French. The latest one that I've got, I think I'll probably go to about 1950.
Well, let me bring you up on the screen, because I know you've got a couple beside you. So
Yeah,
yeah,
sure. I'll show you a nice small one. This is so on the base. I bet
yeah, I
you
can
want
see
to
it.
see
Yeah,
the history buff somewhere.
yeah,
But so
yeah.
this is part of a 25 pounder. The reason it's only that big,
1943.
so that's been cut down over time. So
Yeah,
these simply layered up with coffee and oils and set fire to. Every now and again, I've had this when I've bought small kind of rifle bullets, and you'll set fire to them, and they'll just go bang because there's still live munitions in them.
Rust.
And all the shopkeepers come out and they say, what was that? And you say sorry, it's me. I've just blown something up. So every now and again you get a bit of a surprise. But
Yeah.
these ones haven't gone bang yet. None of
No,
these have gone bang.
not that
But
if they
I
go
think
back,
they're
you
all
know
spent
about it.
really.
Yeah,
I've got, to be fair, I make quite a lot of them because I sell a lot of them.
yeah.
Interior designers love them
They're
because they'll
very
drill
cool.
through the firing pin and the charge there, and then they put them on the wall like that.
Yeah.
So they sit on the wall facing outwards.
Interesting. Yeah.
I
That's,
love them.
yeah, they're very cool.
It's just, when I, like earlier we was talking about history and stuff. When you were a kid, I think it was a different environment in the 90s, wasn't it? You were just allowed to do what you wanted to. You could just get up to all sorts of stuff, and this stuff has always been readily available if you know where to look for it.
Mm.
And it's just the love of history, It's just the love of history there. It's not a morbid thing. I was more interested in kind of airfix and making models, and I don't know. I just anything like hands-on. I just love it.
Yeah,
There's no real reason. It's just love. It's
yeah.
not a kind of anything else other than that. I think if you talk to I talked to my jeweler mate James about this. He absolutely loves working with silver and gold. There's no other reason. He just loves the metals,
Mm.
and it's the same with me. There's no great mystery to it. It's just you just do things you love, don't you?
Yeah, and I think, and you clearly do. That comes across with
Yeah.
how we're talking. It comes across that you do absolutely love what you do, and I think we spoke about earlier about actually talking to people about your work when they come to see it, when they come into your shop, when you're
Yeah.
doing an exhibition. People buy into you as an artist as well as your work, and often they buy into you long before they buy your work. And I
Yeah.
think it's an important point to sort of know and let people really grasp that fact, especially other artists who, I've said this before, but I've been at exhibitions where they've just stood there reading the paper while people look at their work, and you think,
Can't do that.
what the hell are you doing? Or you go to a
Do it.
craft fair. The Hatfield House, not far from here, they have a huge, monstrous craft fair, and people will be talking to people about their paintings, or they'll be talking about a bit something they make, and then you get someone else just sitting there drinking a coffee and reading the paper and not talking to anybody. And I just find it really bizarre that no one will sell your work better than you. That's
No,
the
exactly.
thing. And
Exactly.
and it's also, I think, again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and bring your website up, because it will be good for people to see that. So I'm on the page, but you have got your shop as well. So
Oh
you've
yeah.
got all stuff and there's pages and pages of stuff on there, in terms of, and in fact, way too much stuff is out of stock, I've got to say.
I know. I'm trying to put more onto it.
Yeah, but it's this is also the key, because the more things that people can buy of your work,
Yeah.
Obviously the better for you, but also it's this thing as well about somebody else sees it on the wall. There's
Yeah.
a whole, we've already spoken about the Novotel stuff, but there's way more on your website about that particular project. There's sections on paintings, and if you go into each one of these, you'll see the paintings that are there. I've got a few of these examples as well, which
The annular stuff. So
yeah, and
this came about. This is quite a nice little story, annular. So I mentioned earlier I go metal detecting. It's a bit of a geeky hobby, I know, but it's really become into the fore recently. And you read stories in the paper all the time. But basically, me and my mate Ben, he's an amazing carpenter. Ben is. I use Ben on all the installations that I do. I take Ben with me. He's. I'm just trying to think of a better analogy than a really good carpenter. But he's a really good carpenter. But he comes with me everywhere, and we go metal detecting together. And was out one day, and we got a really good signal. He's got an XP Deus, and he's got a good signal on that. And my metal detector, he just picked up what I thought was silver, and we dug it out of the ground and everything, and it was what's called an annular brooch. And an annular brooch is, I guess, in the 18th century, in the Georgian times, you would work the land by day and you would work the land by night. So, like, you'd work on the moonlight, you'd get your harvest moon, like it is now. But you'd work at night and you'd seed at night and you'd work the day. You'd probably sleep in the daytime and you'd work at night time. So as you're working at night, you'd have a cloak on. You'd pull your hood up over your head, and you see pictures like modern day pictures of these farm workers, and they pull their hoods over their heads and everything. And to hold the cloak together, you'd have a little brooch, and they were usually just made out of copper or brass, and just a circular thing with a little pin through it. But this one that we found, it was gold gilded. So at some point, it had been gilded in gold, and it was quite a nice little thing. So I did what every responsible detector would do. I verified my local what's called a flow, which is your fines liaison officer, and you send him an email of what you found. You let the landowner know what you found. So I let the landowner locally. He said, "Oh, I found this." He goes, "Oh, that's nice." And I goes, "Do you want it?" And he goes, "No, that's all right." I was like, well, it's really. I said I find it really interesting. Being a geek, it shows the history of farming across England, and it shows how people used to live, and it resonates with all the stories about people having to sleep in the daytime, work in the nighttime, and so just this beautiful little brochure. And Ben said to me, he goes, "You need, he doesn't make art, obviously he does carpentry, but he said you need to make artwork that's circular." And I said, "Yeah, that's an absolute fantastic idea, Ben. Why don't I take your advice on that?" I took his advice, and that's how that started. So when people buy the annular work, it was the first time that I'd made circular paintings.
Yeah. So this one called Sunspots.
Yeah, that's the one, isn't it?
I love this one. Absolutely
It just
love
looked
it.
like that. It looked exactly like that.
Yeah. So what sort of size is this? Because it's not.
That's 90 centimeters in size.
Oh wow, decent size. Wow.
And there's a screw that goes through it, and it sits into a square timber square on the back that's glued on with this mastic. That's the most dirtiest stuff. You get it on your hands. It's on there. You have to wash it off. So yeah, I mean, it was more the colours with that one. So it all sprayed ferric chloride to start with to age it, but mixing them colours and getting the green and that variegated green to work with the gold. That's the key with this piece.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Talk about colours in the landscape. You only need to see something once in a small piece, and it can influence something so much. So for me, just that piece of green and the gold that was still there, it was just, I've still got the brooch now, and it just opened up an absolute gold mine. It's just weird how sometimes, like you're in the landscape, you're out walking, and you're doing something, and it's just the littlest thing, and you put your mind to work on it. You think, well, how would that influence what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And then it could lead to something completely different. It's quite a nice way. Then you take your ideas to a gallery and say, look, this has happened. I want to do this. I want to make work like this. And they either yay or nay it, don't they? Really, you get most people yayed that. I didn't have any nays. It was just that's an
No,
amazing story.
yeah, it's really cool. I really like that one.
Thank you,
It's
man.
interesting. I mean, we used to. Well, 25 years I was involved in construction. We used to do quite a lot of heritage type work, and you had to put stuff back and make it look like it did. And especially if it was copper, to get the verdigris to grow quickly,
Yeah,
you used to just coat it up with natural yogurt, and
yeah,
that would get it back quite quickly actually, which is pretty cool. Which you kind of looking at that's and as you've just sort of said it, really, the colors in the background, the colors of the top section of it,
yeah.
it's very got a real appeal. We've 5-6 minutes left, not much, so that's gone quick. But talk to me about this one.
Oh my god! I remember making them. I don't know what I don't know what type of drugs I'd been smoking that day. They were made out of sheet steel. We welded them together. They're
Yeah.
just welded together. I know I rag sketchbooks, but I was sitting drawing. I was just drawing these real kind of odd shapes, and it was for when did I make them? I made them 8 years ago. It was for a project that didn't come about. Was it? I'd made them for something. I'd exhibited them in Battle, so that's in my little town Battle where I live.
Right.
And they're in the Almonry Garden, and they loved them. They're amazing. We'll have them in the garden for a bit. And
They
then
do look cool. Yeah. I mean, they do look cool. Yeah.
yeah,
We've not spoken about this either.
here
So
we go.
this is quite a sizable installation. I think you said it's 10 meters by 1.2.
I
So
think
a
it is. Yeah.
sizable installation. How did this come about?
So I was approached by the White Cross Street Party. I think they're in conjunction with Barbican Centre, and every year they put on a little party in White Cross Street, which is near. Well, that's on Banner Street, but White Cross Street's on Old Street, as you know, it's in the city, back into Shoreditch, Hoxton sort of way. So they just approached me about doing an installation and paid for an installation. I almost had a free reign. It was a Lenny that kind of put me in touch with them, and I mean, they dictated the colours, and I just wanted to kind of it was just a proper make the wall look sort of nice thing. You get loads of. I think the graffiti art is a guy called Voider, who's a really good graffiti artist, and the wall to the left of that is occupied by Voider. There's loads of other artists that get involved every now and again. Really good. I mean, graffiti is not my field, but I know good art when I see it, and graffiti. There's a lot of time for that. So
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had I had somebody on a couple of weeks ago who does do graffiti art, and also last week Rona Smith with big installs. I mean, 15 meters by 5 meters, really chunky installs, quite complex stuff that she creates. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because I say this actually is that for as long as that's there, you've left your mark. It's like, people know.
business card.
It's exactly. It's in a lot of ways it is. So it's really flipping impressive. And I like the fact that even though you are doing different stuff, it is still you. And
It's got to
that's the
retain me. It's
important.
got to be me.
Yeah, that is the important thing. I think that it still is you. It's interesting because you mentioned earlier you were talking about people that which we haven't come back to, so we'll come back to it now. You were talking about people that have helped you, influenced you. Different artists, different people. Tell us a little bit about that before we finish up.
I think one of the best things. It's a really strange story. So there's an artist called Sean Scully, and I used to write essays about Sean Scully at university. Not the best essays, but there were essays, no doubt. I took myself on a trip with a friend. We went around Europe, and I went to every single Sean Scully exhibition that I could find. So we started in Belgium, and then went to France, through France, go to Strasbourg into Colmar, which will take to Germany. Then through Lower Saxony to Munich, and then to Austria, Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, Italy, and then I took a tent. I just stayed in it, just kept in fields and just hosteled it and lived on beer, and that was about it really. Beer and roll-ups. But I just went to every single Sean Scully show because he was a really big, I guess, influence in early stages of artistic career, especially with helping to mold understanding of colour and how to manipulate colour. I read about Sean Scully, and you kind of, yeah, I'm not going to profess to say, oh, I get it. I do get, I get it, but I don't think you ever really get it. If that makes, I listened to interviews with him. Anyway, one day, email came through from Sean Scully, and just said, Sean Scully's interested in buying some work off you. Can you send some samples? Wow. And I nearly shit my brick, to be fair. I was just like, I was like, oh, okay. And I got a real nice email. He's a real nice gentleman. He's probably one of the nicest gentlemen you'd ever want to meet, really. He just said, I really like what you're doing. I followed you for a while. I look at what you're up to. I like your work. And he bought a piece, and then he said, look, we're going to put you in touch with Flowers Gallery on Cork Street. And he curated me as part of the Hidden UK, Hidden Ireland show, which was 2 years ago. And he curated it all, and Matt Flowers at Flowers Gallery was kind of instrumental in putting that together. And there's, you speak to Matt Flowers, and I didn't really get to speak to Sean as much as I wanted to. But I spoke to Matt Flowers, and he spoke about a little bit about Rothko and Sean Scully early doors, and some of it he just opens it up to a different world. You're talking to people, excuse me, who have been going in the art world since the 70s, and they're just influential figures. And I met kind of Sean Scully's university mates and went for dinner with them and had a chat with them, and they just said he was an absolute dynamo. He's always been a dynamo. He always just produces amazing work, and it's like a busman's holiday. When you just think, do you know what? No matter what else happens, right? That show, being part of that, is truly amazing. For me, it was an absolute honour. It was an absolute honour to and I've done the Flowers Christmas shows since that, which has come off the back of that. And it's an honour to be asked to go and do that every year, and they sell this, and they sell the stuff. It's just, you can't, when you get the email to say, just to let you know, we've sold this, and this, you think, bloody hell, here we go. It just kind of shows, doesn't it? It shows that if you just stick to your guns, it does come together eventually, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think look, I would say the whole of my entire life, nothing has ever happened quick enough for me. It's like, because you deal with people who it's not important to them as it is to you. And so, I'll get back to you. And they do, but 2 months later or whatever, and you just think, okay, I've been sitting here now for 2 months waiting for your answer, waiting for you. Nothing ever happens quick enough. And you get people. You do also get people that promise you the earth, and really you find out that they're just telling you that because that's what they think you want to hear. All that old nonsense. I've well become, probably at my age now, quite cynical about that. But you do then meet people that you think, actually, they got the same kind of brain as me. They're on the same wavelength here, and that's what, to be fair, this is why I do this show, because that's exactly how Lisa at Flux is. We've both got a similar view that on what this should be, what she does, and she's absolutely brilliant at curating. Really clever how she makes an exhibition flow. Very, very.
Yes, I think so. I've seen it. I think so as well. I think.
Yeah, and I think it's somebody who shares the same passion that artists have, and so whereas you do get other people that if they think, I don't know. I'm very noticeable for me that you do see the people that give you a load of old nonsense, and then before you know it, it's petered away. And whereas, of course, you've taken it, haven't you? You're like going, oh, wow, it's great. This is going to happen. This is going to be amazing. And actually,
I was genuinely lucky enough. I know it sounds daft. I was genuinely lucky enough to go to university and be supported at the time by, I guess, the system estate, who would pay a grant to go.
yeah,
And you were given loans, and they weren't on great big percentages like they are now. The loans weren't huge, rents weren't huge. It was a different world. I think any young person today involved in art they're up against it, because our system doesn't support young people. Our system doesn't support people at university. It doesn't support people who want to strive and achieve and learn. It places them in debt. It places them in debt from the start. And although it's not linked to mortgages, your debt, it's what a horrible thing we're doing to young people. I was very lucky. I'm bloody lucky to be in this. Even to be sitting here right now, who else does this at 8 o'clock at night? Nobody, right? I'm lucky enough to do all of it, and you want kids to go and do it. You want kids from backgrounds like myself. I'm not posh. I'm not any of that. I'm working class like everyone else. I don't come from any special privileged background. I'm just me. And you want kids that are just like me, just to be able to go to university, not sit in oodles of debt and panic, and to be able to go and make the artwork that they want to go and make, not be constricted.
Well, this is going to be probably a bit controversial, what I'm going to say here, because I was a teacher for 3 years. But there's an awful lot more to be said for do an apprenticeship, because you think if you go back to all the old masters, they had apprentices, they had and quite a lot of that work was turned out by them, fair enough, but they had apprentices who learned on the go. They didn't have somebody at uni telling them, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. They learned from a master. And that is the thing, I think, right across industry, especially the industry I'm involved in, where we're now getting to a point where it's all well and good saying we're going to be building 150,000 or 300,000, 1.5 million houses a year. But the truth is there ain't anybody to build them. And because they got rid of the apprentice schemes. And this to me, I get loads of young people ask if they can come on a photo shoot. Come and to one of my photo shoots to learn how to set lights up, how to do that, and I do a lot of talks on it. But I think that is for me anyway, I feel that would be a better route. Learn from somebody who does it, and you can then go off in your own direction. But at the end of the day as well, as you're still there at 8 o'clock at night. It comes down to hard work. It comes down to actually, if you're not prepared to work hard, you ain't going to get anywhere anyway.
So it's me that you see, and it's the work that you see, but there's a whole army of people behind me. There's probably somebody answering an email now about me, and So, I mean, George Thornton, probably one of the most hardest working gallerists. He won't be listening to this. He'll be out in his car somewhere driving artwork around. He's one of the most, actually Ruth, his gallery manager, will probably right now. But George is one of the hardest working.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like your signals.
I know, and I work with. He's out the door early doors.
I think your signal's gone a bit weird. Yeah, you're still here, but you were breaking up. It lasted all that time. Lasted over the hour. But yeah, but no, you're all right. You're working now, but.
But no, he's a really hard working guy, George. And like I said, I'm just lucky to work with really good. There's a whole army of them.
Yeah.
Really good gallerists, who just represent, and they know we'll do business together,
Brilliant. Right. Well, look, I'm going to wrap this up because we're well
Yeah.
over the time, which is amazing. I told you it would go easy. Don't run off. I'll have a quick chat with you afterwards.
Okay.
But for now, Sam, thanks very much for coming on. It's
No,
been a
thank
pleasure.
you.
I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
This is kind of right up my street as well because I was a design technology teacher and art teacher, so that's kind of why I say that. I'm really
Right.
interested in how you create what you do. I do love it as well. I saw it afresh, thought it was fabulous there. Hopefully, you know, if you still fancy trying to apply for Flux, it'll be great to see you. If not, if you don't get
Yeah.
in or come, then at least come to the PV on the
Yeah.
Thursday night and
Will do.
you know, see the artwork. It'll be
We'll work
fantastic.
it
But
all out.
I'll catch you in a second. I'll just wrap
Yeah.
this up. Yeah. All right. Fantastic. Thanks very much. Right. Well, just remind you that next week, I don't know if this slide will still be on the one it was on, but yep, I'm going to be at Michelle Watson's Private View, and I'm going to do the show from there. So hopefully, all of that will work. That's going to be interesting for sure to see whether that's not something I've done before. I'm going to play out tonight with Sam's video again, and then I will see you next week for a live show direct from a gallery. To be interesting for me, if not you. Thanks very much.